morning and welcome to the First Unitarian Universalist Church of Austin. Thank you. We are a spiritual and spirited congregation dedicated to the free search for truth and meaning. If you're visiting with us this morning, I invite you to ask questions about this congregation or Unitarian Universalism at the visitor table. If you care to, they will do their best to get you some answers. We come from a long heritage of teaching that there's a spark of the divine in every person. In the spirit of that heritage, I say, let us greet the divine in our midst by turning to the person to your right and left and welcoming them here this morning. Please say with me the words by which we light the chalice, which is the symbol of our faith. Love is the spirit of this church, and service is its law. This is our great covenant, to dwell together in peace, to speak the truth in love, and to help one another.
Good morning. Our call to worship this morning is by Stephen Sondheim from Into the Woods. How do you say to your child in the night, nothing's all black, but then nothing's all white? How do you say it will be all right when you know that it might not be true? What do? Careful the things you say, children will listen. Careful the things you do, children will see and learn. Children may not obey, but children will listen. Children will look to you for which way to turn. Now please turn in your hymnals to hymn number 118, and let's rise together in body and our spirit to sing This Little Light of Mine.
Feels like church. For 7 years, we've had this mission statement written on the wall, and we're saying it every Sunday. This weekend, the board spent Friday night and Saturday talking about the input from the congregation they got in November. Sean will talk a little bit more about that. I wish you all could have seen how they worked together. And they're in draft right now, so you'll see it when it's done. But I was inspired and excited. Our mission guides us as we make decisions, and we've made some good, big ones, guided by this mission, which we will say together. We gather in community to nourish souls, transform lives, and do justice. One of the ways that lives are transformed is by service, and some are transformed by service in this congregation. Sean Ramsey is going to talk a little bit about his leadership and yours.
Good morning. Good morning. Well, my name is Sean Ramsey. I've been a longtime member here, over 15 years. My wife Carol and I have been around for a while. We have 3 daughters, 2 of which are in the RE program. And during this time, I've served on the stewardship committee. I've been a chalice circle leader. I've been a board member for the last 3 years and have participated as a teacher in the RE program. And this coming year, I'll be your next board president. I'm the president-elect right now. So 1 more term. So when I was asked to do this leadership moment, a lot of ideas sort of stirred in my brain about what would really motivate and inspire people to service. You know, there's the road of telling stories about how it's transformed and nourished me to be a part of a leadership, working with board members, all the people I've managed to learn from. I'm looking at you, Bill, over the years. But not today, not today. What I want to talk about today is this idea of the nested bowls that Meg mentioned. And if you haven't been around and you're not sure what nested bowls are, I don't blame you. The idea of the nested bowls is at the bottom of the bowl is our values, right? And inside of that bowl is our mission. And inside the mission are our ends, okay? So imagine this bowl. And we have spent a good portion of the last few months entrenched in this process of listening to our community, listening to you, hearing and sharing these poignant moments of inspiration, of joys, of moments of clarity for you where this community has really inspired you. And we've heard and seen your aspirations for what we want to be as a community. And if you haven't already, out in the gallery are, I don't know how many, 30 different magazine covers. And if you weren't a part of the process, what these are is part of that workshop at the end was imagining 7 years from now, if we had a cover on a magazine, what would it say? So if you go in the gallery after, don't leave now. If you go in the gallery after the service, look at those covers because those covers represent us and our dreams for ourselves of where we want to go, okay? It truly has been a journey of courage and wonder. 2 months, 15 focus group sessions, 15 different facilitators amongst us, 11 board members, over 100 members of our community giving up some portion of their weekend or evening away from family. And while we're still working through the process, we'll reveal more in March, we are doing well. It has been 7 years since the forging of the current mission, values, and ends. We have done a lot of work. We've instituted policy governance. We've learned and instituted policy governance. No small feat. We have been inspired to a capital campaign of over $3 million to make our home better, to beautify it, the place where we worship together. We've also been inspired to live out our Unitarian Universalist values in a lot of ways, but none so profound as providing sanctuary for 2 people and building partnerships with other organizations and other faith communities. And in this time in our history, this is huge. This is what we're doing. There is no question that we are here because of our executive leadership team. Meg and Chris have provided a fresh leadership and have challenged us to become the community we want to be. But we, us, through this process, we forged our vision and where we want to go. They are helping us get there. We have done the work to learn and institute policy governance. We have worked to prepare the facilities to house our guests. We have raised the money and the resources to afford our mission, and we continue to fund the daily operations to maintain the audio video, the grounds, all of it. And we have done the work to do justice, transform lives, and nourish each other's souls. When I was younger, I'm a lifelong UU, so when I was younger, one of the things we used to do in the youth group was this exercise called light as a feather. I'm not sure if any of you have ever done this or experienced this, but effectively what happens is one person lays prone, and then a small group of people get around that prone body. They put two fingers underneath, and together they're able to lift that body. Now this is important. You can't have too many people on one side of the body or other side flails. You can't have too few people or you're just not going to do it. And you can't have too many people in there, right? It just gets clumsy and awkward. You have to have the right number of people working together to lift that body, but if you do, it is light as a feather. So here's an exercise, and no, I'm not going to ask you to lay prone or anything like that. Everyone who has served on the board of trustees, please stand. Everybody who has been on the nominating committee, please stand. If you've been an RE volunteer or teacher, please stand. If you've led a chalice circle, been on the stewardship committee, or led a stewardship campaign, stand. If you have participated in or led a social justice activity in our church, please stand. If you've been a youth advisor, if you've done anything to help maintain and take ownership of what it is required to maintain this church, I want you to stand. The grounds, the maintenance, the facilities, the AV. This is us. This is our community. This is us working together to build a better place, to build our mission. We are here because of you. Now, you can sit down. To all that are sitting, I have great news for you. It is a huge opportunity in our time. I am so excited to be your president-elect. We are beautifying our home. The construction has started. We are about to tackle a great new adventure together, and I want to invite you to be a part of that. If you are interested, there are photos of the Board of Trustees out on the wall behind here. Find us. We also sometimes, but I'm terrible at it, have a blue ribbon. You know Meg and Chris, ask them. There is also a table out in the foyer in the gallery for the nominating committee. Talk to them. There are opportunities on the Board of Trustees. I think there's 3 open slots, and we would love for you to have fun with us. And remember, get in there. Be a part of this. It takes the right number of people to make this as light as a feather. Thank you.
young in heart, up for the story for all ages. Oh, we have a penguin. I saw you. I got eyes all over the place. How is everybody doing this morning? Oh my goodness, I love it. I'm super excited because the sun is out. I know, it's been gray and gross and okay. My goodness. This morning's story is about a girl named Sophia. You're a big sister? Me too. Mama, why do we just keep going and not going anywhere? Asked little Sophia. Her family was crossing the Pacific Ocean on a big trip, and they were heading to America. Sophia Lyon was an American girl, and she was 3.5 years old, and she was making her first trip to America. She and her brothers and sisters had all been born in China, where their father was a Christian minister, and their mother had started a school for Chinese girls. And when they made this long trip to America in 1880, Sophia's parents thought that their family would go back to China in a year. But plans changed, and Sophia never returned to China. And as she grew up, her memories of China began to dim, but she hoped that when she grew up that she would be able to go to other countries as a teacher just like her parents. In college, Sophia joined a club for young people who also wanted to become Christian teachers. And there she met another devoted volunteer, and his name was Harvey Foss. They began writing letters to each other, and they started making plans about how they would travel and how they would teach together. And 6 years later, they got married. But instead of traveling to another country, Sophia and Harvey moved to New York City. Harvey had a job, and Sophia Lyon Foss taught Sunday school, and she continued her studies. And she was very excited about all the new ideas that she was learning about. Sophia and Harvey had their first child in 1904. And in those days, many women stopped working outside of the house once they became mothers, but not Sophia. She was determined to keep learning and to keep teaching Sunday school, and she did. And as it turns out, being a mother also helped Sophia learn. She learned about children from being with her own children and from listening to their ideas and their questions. And when her children asked questions, Sophia tried her best to answer them. And her children had very interesting questions like, where does snow come from? Or, where are we before we are born? And as she tried to answer her children's questions, Sophia began to learn how much she didn't know. And you might think that not having all the answers would take away Sophia's faith, but it was the opposite. She started to believe that to have a strong faith, finding questions you really care about is just as important as finding the answers. One time, when Sophia taught a religious education class, she told a lively story about a real person who had been a Christian teacher in another country. The children were eager to hear this story, and they were eager to talk about it. And like her own children at home, the children started asking questions. The interesting kind of questions that let Sophia know that the children were all really thinking and really learning. And Sophia's own ideas about religion changed over time. As a young person, she had thought that Christianity was the one true religion and that people all over the world should learn Bible stories. She grew to realize that the Bible was not the only book with truth in it. She collected stories from all over the world filled with truth and beauty to help children's spirits to stretch and to grow. And she published all of these stories in a book called From Long Ago in Many Lands. In those days, when most adults thought that children's minds were like empty jars that need to be filled with learning, Sophia thought differently. She thought that children were more like gardens, already planted with seeds of possibility for learning and for growing. She thought that a teacher's job was to provide the soil, water, and sunlight, and all the things that a garden needs to grow. In religious school, a teacher could help children grow in their spirit and faith. When Sophia was 82 years old, she became a Unitarian minister. Her own life was a great example of her belief that every person in a congregation should continue to learn and to grow, from the smallest child to the oldest adult. Sophia Lyon Foss lived a long time, 102 years, and she never stopped learning new things. And if she were alive today, I think that she would want to know about our experiences and how they have helped us to learn and to grow. She would want to know what stories we have read and how they've helped to awaken our spirits. She would want to know how we ask questions, seek answers, and learn from each other. And imagine how happy she would be to see us watering one another's seeds of spiritual growth. The end.
Our centering words today will be in the form of a responsive reading. So please turn in the back of your hymnal to reading number 649, From Generation to Generation. And I will begin, and you will join me in reading the words in italic. In a house which becomes a home, one hands down and another takes up the heritage of mind and heart, laughter and tears, musings and deeds. Love, like a carefully loaded ship, crosses the gulf between the generations. Therefore, we do not neglect the ceremonies of our passage when we wed, when we die, and when we are blessed with a child, when we depart and when we return, when we plant and when we harvest. Let us bring up our children. It is not the place of some official to hand to them their heritage. If others impart to our children our knowledge and ideals, they will lose all of us that is wordless and full of wonder. Let us build memories in our children, lest they drag out joyless lives, lest they allow treasures to be lost because they have not been given the keys. We live not by things, but by the meanings of things. It is needful to transmit the passions from generation to generation.
Now is the time in our service when we enter into an attitude of meditation and prayer together, where we speak to God and listen to God as we understand God, or just listen to our inner wisdom as it bubbles up from the stillness, or we just follow our breath as it comes in and out of our bodies. It is in this still place that we can face the world with compassion, that we can face our own inner fears and hopes. We can ask for clarity and love. Let us enter into the wise silence together, understanding that in this congregation the small noises of small children and noises of life count as part of the silence. invited to light candles of joy or sorrow. You're invited to continue meditating. In order to let the mood of meditation continue, we refrain from applause after the meditation music. First, one little thing. I believe in thanking people, and so I noticed some of y'all didn't stand even though you've worked on working teams just because you weren't sure whether Sean was calling out your team or not. So if you've been working on a working team, a committee that Sean didn't mention, and you didn't get to stand up, would you stand now? I know it's embarrassing, but no? Okay. That's all right. So, most of you know I have two sons. They're 31 and 28 now. And when the first one was born, I had no idea what I was doing. Like we all don't. But my mother told me, Maggie, you have good instincts, just don't worry about it and do what comes naturally. She grew up in India, and she said, I like the way that the people in Pakistan did it. She said, you just ignore the child for the first 5 years and let it run wild. And that would probably work best. But they don't let you do that here. And anyway, I didn't want to do it that way. And she didn't do it that way, by the way. She just was dreaming of that from her parents, I think. So my kids were little, and I was working as a therapist, and I heard from grown folks all the time that their parents were disappointed in them. And I said, well, what do you think they wanted from you? And they would say, they just wanted me to be perfect, and I'm not. And then I would talk to parents and say, what do you want from your kids? And they would say, I just want them to be happy. And I thought, boy, that's a disconnect right there. So I decided I was going to write a job description for my sons. I thought, how would I want them to turn out? What if they turned out like this? I would feel like I had done a good job. And so my then husband and I talked, and we came up with a list. We decided we wanted the children to be kind and strong and brave, joyful, useful, loving, honest, and healthy. And so we made that into a prayer, and we would say, dear God, bless everybody we knew, and then make us kind and strong and brave, joyful, useful, loving, and honest. Amen. And healthy. Amen. The healthy was a later addition when we realized we'd left out the body completely. And so I think my sons got the idea that these were their goals. And so when we do a baby dedication in this congregation, which we're planning to do on the 25th of this month, I asked the parents to come up with a list of what they would like for their children to become, a job description for their child, if you will, and they read it as part of the baby dedication. We bring our children to this community so that they'll be taught the values of Unitarian Universalism. We have 7 principles that we teach the children, and we have 5 values of this congregation, which are transcendence, to connect with wonder and awe at the unity of life; community, to connect with joy, sorrow, and service with those whose lives we touch; compassion, to treat ourselves and others with love; courage, to live lives of honesty, vulnerability, and beauty; transformation, to pursue the growth that changes our lives and heals our world. So really, from Sunday morning to all the classes for children and adults, all of it is about faith development and the transfer of values, the deepening of values in ourselves, the transfer of values to our children and grandchildren, and in order to allow us to know our Unitarian Universalist values, teach them, and act on them out in the world. So, religious education is important. We call it faith development here. We are talking at 1 o'clock about our changing vision for religious education, for faith development. We need ideas from everyone. This is not just a parent job. This is a whole church job to transfer our values. Love like a carefully loaded ship transfers the treasure from generation to generation. This is the job of all of us, whether we have children and grandchildren or not. So we want to begin our search for the new director of faith development by having some kind of a visioning session about what we would like our program to look like. So one of the things that transfers our values to the children is our faith development classes, but the main thing is you all. Whether you have children, you have grandchildren, you have kids that you hang around with, nieces or nephews or whatever kind of biological or chosen family you have, if you're around kids, here's the deal. As Stephen Sondheim said, they are listening and they're watching. They know what you practice and they know what you preach, and they see the differences. Yeah. The thing that used to make parents turn pale in my therapy office was when I said, so you know that your kids are going to turn out pretty much like you. That seemed to horrify a lot of people, because they were seeing their children as these shining vessels of possibility, and really they're going to grow up to be pretty regular human beings, and probably not paragons of gorgeousness, wealth, and intelligence, although maybe. If you are. And so the main thing is, you have to ask yourself as a parent or a grandparent, will I be happy if these kids turn out pretty much like me? So we listen to the kids, we spend time on them rather than only money. They're watching you like TV with the sound turned down, so they watch what you do. They know you really well. They can give you all your lectures by the time they're 10. When my sons started rolling their eyes when I would start with the lectures, I would say, fine, you give me the lecture. And they would. I was like, oh, okay, you know that already. Sometimes they would be smart alecky about it. Like they would say, I know, Mom. You want us to not smoke pot until we're in love. That's not what I said. My older son was standing by the couch one day and I just said, I'm trying to figure out how you're going to drive me crazy as a teenager. Because like if you tried to wear mascara and stuff like that, it wouldn't really bother me that much. I'm just trying to use my imagination. He said, oh, I know exactly how I would do it. I said, how? He said, I'd start listening to Rush Limbaugh and date a girl whose dad's in the Klan. Which we were living in South Carolina was a possibility. You nailed it, I said. So you ask yourself as a parent or grandparent as you make decisions, is this the decision I would want my kid to make or my grandkid to make if they were in this same situation? Are these the values I'm living that I would want them to live? It's important to raise them to be people you would like to hang out with. It's important to, I learned everything I know about child raising from this dog training book. Called How to Be Your Dog's Best Friend. But it talked about catching them when they do it right instead of hammering them when they do it wrong. Just basic good sense techniques. And it said that having no limits feels like abandonment. I thought, oh, okay. The way we transfer our values to them is that we make little rituals with them. We light a candle before dinner. We say what we're grateful for. Or we go for night walks. We have special food on certain days, or we have a secret family Tuesdays are lucky narrative, or we have a special good deed day. They'll have ideas about little rituals if you ask. All the authors that I read recommend having a little time each day to talk about the day. There's a book called The Gift of Faith by Julie Newyar, and she says, list 3 things every day, the same things. Something that you're thankful for, something from the day that you're sorry for, and something you intend for tomorrow. If you don't have children in your life, or even if you do, I'm going to talk during the announcements about another possibility of how to transfer your values from generation to generation. But let me end this with a quotation from Robert Coles, a great educator. So it is, we connect with one another, move in and out of one another's lives, teach and heal and affirm one another across space and time. All of us wanderers, explorers, adventurers, stragglers, and ramblers, sometimes tramps or vagabonds, even fugitives, but now and then pilgrims. As children, as parents, as old ones about to take that final step to enter that territory whose character none of us here knows. Yet how young we are when we start wondering about it all, the nature of the journey, and of the final destination. These are things we want to learn to talk to our children about, and our grandchildren, our nieces and nephews, the kids we hang out with. Now let us rise in body or spirit and sing hymn number 317, We Are Not Our Own. It's an unfamiliar one, so we're going to play it all the way through and then do our best. Now let there be an offering taken and gratefully received to strengthen and uphold the living stone of this congregation. If you're a first-time visitor with us, please be our guest and keep your money in your pocket unless you just feel moved to give your presence as a gift to us. If you've been here before, please do be generous. He wrote that one. Doesn't have a CD yet, but he's making one soon. Blessings on your gifts, and blessings on you as givers, and blessings on the generosity in the hearts of all of us. Before we extinguish our chalice, I would like to tell you about a couple of things. But I can only remember one of them right now. We are going to be rolling out a program for legacy giving in March. I'm going to talk about it a little bit now. The Unitarian Universalist Association got a grant of $5 million from a funding source called VEACH, which is a Unitarian church where a lady long ago said in her will, I've got these mineral rights, I'm not sure what to do with them, they're for the North Sea, there's some, I don't know, you can have them if you can figure it out. So the oil well in the North Sea gives this church $17 million a year, and they give it out. So what they're doing with this grant is that whenever, until the money is gone, whenever someone in a Unitarian Universalist church puts the church or the Unitarian Universalist Association in their will, the UUA out of this money turns 10% of that back to the church the same year it's pledged, not the year it's dispersed. Does that make sense? So if you put, say, $50,000 for the church in your will, the UUA gives us $5,000 that year that you put it in your will. So we're going to ask you to be thinking about that. I know you think about it if you come for breakfast tacos, because those are funded by a lady's bequest named Martha Leipziger, and hence we have breakfast tacos, which is one of the wonderful things about this congregation, one of the 473 wonderful things. So we'll be talking more about that, and I hear from some of you that you're already doing it, so that's great. I think the other one was that there is a class, a pathway to UU, pathway to membership class on the 17th. So coming up in a couple of weeks, 9 o'clock to 12, if you want to explore membership in this congregation. Let us extinguish the chalice with these words. We extinguish this flame, but not the light of truth, the warmth of community, or the fire of commitment. These we hold in our hearts until we are together again. Sing with me if you like.